AITA for exposing my brother after my mom blamed me for my aunt's missing care money? I'm Natalie, 43, and in my family I was always the daughter people called when something was overdue, missing, unpaid, unsigned, or quietly falling apart. My mom, Linda, liked to say my older brother Brandon had a good heart, while I had a sharp tongue, which was funny because I was usually the one at her kitchen counter at 10 p.m. sorting pill bottles, insurance letters, and grocery receipts while Brandon sent a thumbs-up emoji from wherever he had disappeared to. That was the family arrangement for as long as I can remember. Brandon promised. I handled. Linda praised him for promising and criticized me for needing details. If Mom had an insurance form she didn't understand, she called me. If Aunt Ruth's pharmacy refill got delayed, she called me. If a utility bill went missing under a pile of catalogs, she called me. If Brandon forgot to pick up his son Ethan from school, somehow I got a text that said, "Can you help just this once?" Even though just this once had become a family tradition. And if I said no, even one time, my mother knew exactly how to edit the story. We had a family group chat called Family First. It had cousins, in-laws, older relatives, a few people who only appeared to send heart emojis, and Aunt Ruth, who mostly read everything and saved her energy for sentences that actually mattered. Mom would post things like, "Natalie says she can't help again. Please pray for patience." Then the hearts would start. Claire, my cousin, would reply, "Oh Linda, I'm sorry." Someone else would send prayer hands. Brandon would write, "Let's all be kind. Mom is doing her best." What nobody saw was the private text from Mom 2 hours earlier asking me to run to the pharmacy during my lunch break. Or the Zelle receipt showing I had already paid for the medication. Or the photo I sent her of the receipt folded into a zip-top bag, because she had asked me to keep everything organized for Aunt Ruth's care file. Once, after she posted that I had chosen not to help, I texted her privately, "Mom, I paid the pharmacy bill this morning." She replied, "Don't start. I'm stressed." That was my family in 4 words. Brandon was 46, charming in the way unreliable people can be when they need you to like them more than you need them to follow through. He was not a monster. That almost made it worse. He could be funny. He could be warm. He loved his son Ethan, or at least he loved the idea of being seen as a devoted father. But responsibility slid off him like water off glass. He was always about to do something. About to pay me back. About to call the insurance company. About to send the form. About to check on Aunt Ruth. About to fix it. And every time he failed, Mom would sigh and say, "Brandon meant well." One afternoon, after I had spent 40 minutes on hold with Aunt Ruth's insurance company because Brandon had forgotten to submit a reimbursement form, Mom said, "You don't have to make him feel small about it." I said, "The insurance company doesn't reimburse good intentions." She looked at me like I had slapped him. That was what she meant by my sharp tongue. I used words like deadline, receipt, and who is actually doing this? Aunt Ruth was 72. Technically my mother's older cousin, but close enough that everyone just called her Aunt Ruth. She had started needing more help after a fall. Nothing dramatic at first. Just paperwork, rides, medication reminders, a home care schedule, a walker that arrived late because the first order got messed up, and a stack of bills that seemed to multiply every week. Aunt Ruth hated drama. She hated vague promises even more. "I don't need speeches," she told me once while I was taping an appointment reminder to her fridge. "I need the truth and the bills paid on time." So I made a spreadsheet. Nothing fancy. Date. Appointment. Responsible person. Paid by. Amount. Notes. Mom called it your little control sheet, until she needed something from it. Then it became Natalie's records. Brandon hated the spreadsheet. "Do we really need to document every little thing?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Because people keep forgetting every big thing." He rolled his eyes. "Not everything has to be a courtroom." I should have listened to that sentence more carefully. People who hate records usually have a reason. The first Rayall warning came through Ethan. Ethan was 13 and had nothing to do with any of this. He was a good kid. Quiet, observant, already old enough to know which adults were safe to call when plans fell apart. I hated that he knew to call me. One Thursday, I got a text from him at 4:37 p.m. "Aunt Nat, Dad's not here yet. It's okay, I can wait." It was not okay. I called Brandon twice. No answer. I called Mom. She said, he probably got stuck. You know he's been overwhelmed. So Ethan should stand outside because Brandon is overwhelmed? Natalie, don't make everything an attack. I picked Ethan up. He climbed into my car with his backpack half-zipped and said, Dad said he lost track of time. I bought him a sandwich on the way home because he said he wasn't hungry in the exact voice kids use when they are starving but don't want to be a problem. That night, Brandon sent me a Venmo request for $300. The note said, Bridge until Friday. Ethan stuff. I stared at it for a long time. Then he texted, Don't make this a whole thing. I'll pay you Friday. I wrote back, You said that last month. He replied with a laughing emoji like I was being cute. I didn't send the money that time, but I had sent it before. More than I wanted to admit. Small amounts then bigger ones. Gas, school supplies, groceries. One temporary loan after another. Sometimes it really was for Ethan. Sometimes I never knew. I told myself I was protecting my nephew. Looking back, I was also protecting myself from the guilt my family knew how to hand me like a hot pan. Then Aunt Ruth's home care deposit went missing. It was not a giant amount compared to a lifetime of family drama, but it was enough to matter. Enough for the agency to delay scheduling the new aid. Enough for Aunt Ruth to call me and say, The woman on the phone says they don't have the deposit. I thought Brandon was handling that. He was supposed to be. The plan had been simple. Aunt Ruth received a reimbursement check. Brandon offered to deposit it and use the funds to pay the home care agency because, in his words, Nat shouldn't have to do everything. Mom nearly glowed when he said it. See, she told me. Your brother wants to step up. I said, Great. Then he can enter the payment confirmation in the spreadsheet. Brandon made a face. There she goes. Mom laughed like he was adorable. 3 weeks later, the agency said they had no deposit. Brandon stopped answering texts. Mom started calling me more often, but in a strange, careful way. Can you just cover it for now? She asked. Where is the reimbursement money? Brandon is sorting it out. What does that mean? It means don't interrogate your brother when everyone is stressed. Mom, the aid can't start without the deposit. I know. That's why I'm asking you. I paid it. I hated myself a little while doing it, but I paid it because Aunt Ruth needed help getting safely in and out of the shower, and I wasn't going to let her suffer because Brandon was avoiding his phone. I saved the receipt. I saved the email confirmation. I entered it in the spreadsheet. 2 days later, Mom left me a voicemail. Her voice was soft, breathy, the tone she used when she wanted forgiveness before admitting what she had done. Hi, honey. I saw you paid the deposit. Thank you. Please don't bring this up in the family chat. Okay? Your brother is embarrassed, and he can't handle another humiliation right now. We just need to get through this. I know you understand. I stood in my kitchen holding my phone, listening to the message twice. Then I saved it. I did not know yet how badly I would need it. The ambush happened at what Mom called a care planning afternoon. That phrase alone should have warned me. Nobody in my family planned in the afternoon unless someone had already been blamed in the morning. Mom told everyone we needed to gather at her place to get organized around Aunt Ruth's care. No big event. Just coffee, store-bought cinnamon rolls, sweet tea in a plastic pitcher, paper plates on the counter, and too many relatives standing around the kitchen island pretending they had not come to watch a show. Claire was there looking uncomfortable. Aunt Ruth sat at the end of the table with her cane hooked over the chair, quiet but alert. Brandon was already sitting next to Mom when I walked in, which was unusual. He normally arrived late enough to look busy but early enough to eat. Mom smiled at me in a way that made my stomach tighten. Good, she said. You're here. I set my purse on the back of a chair. You said we were going over the care schedule. We are, she said. But first, we need to clear the air. There are family sentences that sound harmless to outsiders and like sirens to the people raised inside them. Claire glanced at me. Your mom sounded really upset. I thought you two had talked. About what? I asked. Nobody answered fast enough. Mom put both hands around her coffee cup. Her voice got soft. Not gentle. Soft. There's a difference. I never thought I'd have to beg my own daughter to care about this family. The room went still. I looked at Brandon. He lowered his eyes like a man grieving something he had personally set on fire. Mom continued, I have been carrying so much alone. Aunt Ruth's paperwork, the bills, the phone calls, the confusion around the care money. And every time I ask Natalie for help, there is attitude. There is resistance. There is this need to control everything. I said, what care money are you talking about? Her eyes flicked to Brandon for half a second. That was all I needed to know. This was not confusion. Mom said, I'm not saying you stole anything. I almost laughed. That is a very careful sentence. Natalie, Claire said softly, maybe let her finish. Mom looked wounded, which was her favorite costume. I'm saying the money became impossible to track once you got involved. And I think it's best if Brandon takes over the paperwork from here. He actually cares about keeping the family together. The kitchen air changed. There it was. Not just criticism. Replacement. Accusation. A public handoff of my work and my reputation to the person who had caused the mess. One of my older cousins crossed her arms. Your mother shouldn't have to beg her own daughter for help. She didn't beg, I said. She delegated. There's a difference. Brandon sighed. Can we not do this? Mom is already hurt enough. I turned to him. You have something to add? He lifted both hands. I'm just saying we all need to stop making this ugly. That was Brandon's talent. He could create a fire, stand in the smoke, and ask why everyone was breathing so aggressively. Another relative said, Natalie, you do come off harsh sometimes. Claire, trying to be fair and somehow making it worse, said, maybe your mom just feels like she can't ask without getting a lecture. I looked at Aunt Ruth. She was watching Mom, not me. That kept me from exploding. I wanted to tell them everything. I wanted to pull out my phone and read every receipt like scripture. I wanted to ask Brandon in front of his own mother where the deposit had gone and why his son knew how to apologize for needing a ride. Instead, I stood up. Mom blinked. Where are you going? I'm not participating in a conversation built on lies. Brandon muttered. Convenient. I looked at him. Careful. Then I picked up my purse and walked out without slamming the door. I didn't want to give them a soundbite. The group chat started buzzing before I reached my car. Linda. I tried. I really did. Brandon. Let's not attack Nat. Mom is hurt enough. Cousin Diane. So sad. Claire. Can someone explain what actually happened? Linda. I tried to handle this privately, but Natalie walked away from family again. I sat in my car with both hands on the steering wheel and felt something in me go cold and clear. For years, I had believed silence was maturity. I thought not correcting every lie made me stronger. I thought absorbing humiliation was the price of peace. But peace that only exists because one person keeps swallowing the truth is not peace. It is maintenance. And I was done being maintenance. That night, I cleared my kitchen table. I took out the zip-top bags of receipts. Pharmacy. Groceries. Late fees. Home care deposit. I opened my bank app and downloaded transfer confirmations. Zelle to Mom. Venmo to Brandon. Direct payments to the pharmacy and care agency. I searched my texts for Friday, and Brandon's name lit up like a warning sign. I'll pay you Friday. Just until Friday. Friday for sure. Don't tell Mom. I'll handle it Friday. Different months. Same sentence. I opened the shared caregiving spreadsheet and added a new column. Source. Then I made a folder. I named it the version with receipts. I did not fill it with insults. That was the hardest part. I wanted to write, here is every time Brandon lied and Mom helped him do it. I wanted captions. I wanted arrows. I wanted the family to feel embarrassed in the exact spots where they had tried to embarrass me. Instead, I kept it clean. Timeline. Date. Issue. Person assigned. Person who completed it. Amount. Proof. March 4th. Aunt Ruth pharmacy refill. Linda requested Natalie pay. Paid by Natalie. Receipt attached. March 18th. Ethan school pickup. Brandon assigned. Completed by Natalie. Text from Ethan attached. April 2nd. Insurance reimbursement form. Brandon assigned. Submitted by Natalie after missed deadline. Email confirmation attached. April 21st. Home care deposit. Brandon received reimbursement funds. Agency unpaid. Deposit paid by Natalie. Bank transfer and agency confirmation attached. Then I added the voicemail transcript. Please don't bring this up in the family chat. Your brother is embarrassed, and he can't handle another humiliation right now. I listened to it again before transcribing. Mom's voice sounded so small. Once that would have worked on me. Not anymore. The next morning I called her. She answered with a heavy sigh, like picking up the phone was already an act of suffering. Are you ready to apologize? She asked. No, I said. I'm ready to give you one private chance to correct what you said. Silence. I continued. You told everyone I made the care money impossible to track. You implied I mishandled it. You said Brandon should take over because he cares. You know none of that is true. Natalie, I am not doing this with you. You have until tomorrow morning to correct it in Family First. Threatening your mother now? No. Giving you the courtesy you didn't give me. She made a sharp little sound. Family doesn't keep score. People who keep paying usually do. You have always been so hard, she said. And you have always called records cruelty when they made Brandon uncomfortable. Her voice changed. The softness disappeared. Your brother has made mistakes, but his heart is in the right place. The care agency doesn't bill his heart. Don't be nasty. Correct the lie, Mom. She hung up. By lunch she had posted again. Linda. Some people care more about being right than being family. Brandon reacted with prayer hands. Then he wrote, Mom, you've done everything you could. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty. I stared at that message and smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was useful. He had just stepped into the lie voluntarily. I did not upload the folder right away. That would have been satisfying but messy. I wanted one more thing, an audience that could not pretend they missed it. Aunt Ruth called me that evening. She didn't say hello. She said, Do you have proof? Yes. All of it. Enough. Bring paper too, she said. Phones make people stupid. That was Aunt Ruth. Practical even during betrayal. Mom announced another care planning afternoon for the following Saturday. I almost admired the confidence. She thought the first one had cornered me. She thought I had left because I had no answer. She thought my silence was weakness because in our family, silence had always been something she assigned to me. I arrived with my phone charged, a printed folder in my bag, and no speech rehearsed beyond the truth. The kitchen looked almost the same as the week before. Coffee, paper plates, a plastic container of cookies, sweet tea sweating on the counter, relatives hovering in that fake casual way people do when they want drama but also want to call it concern. Claire met me near the hallway. Nat, she said quietly, I don't want this to get worse. Then listen carefully when it gets specific. She looked down. Your mom said you were punishing everyone. Of course she did. Brandon walked in from the living room and gave me a tight smile. Can we not make this ugly? He asked. I said, that depends on how allergic everyone is to dates and amounts. His smile dropped. Mom clapped her hands once, like she was starting a church committee meeting. Okay, she said. I just want us to talk with love. Aunt Ruth shifted in her chair. I want us to talk with facts. Mom ignored that. She looked at me with wet eyes already prepared. Natalie, I prayed about this. I don't want division. But you have chosen pride over family, and it has hurt more than just me. Brandon nodded slowly. I didn't want to say anything, but Mom has been carrying this alone. The room got quiet. I looked at him. That's a choice, saying that out loud. He blinked. What? I took the printed folder out of my bag and placed it on the kitchen table. Then I opened Family First and uploaded the digital folder. File name. The version with receipts. For a second, nobody moved. Phones started buzzing around the kitchen. I said, You all heard the version that made me look cruel. Now you get the version with dates. Mom reached toward the folder. Aunt Ruth put her hand on top of it first. No, Aunt Ruth said. I'll read it. Mom froze. Brandon laughed once too loud. Are you serious right now? Yes, I said. You're really going to air private family business? You put my character out there first. Claire had her phone open. Her face changed as she scrolled. Not dramatically, Just slowly, like each line was removing a brick from a wall she had leaned on. She said, "Linda, this says Natalie paid the pharmacy twice." Mom said, "That's not what this is about." Aunt Ruth turned a page. "And the home care deposit." Brandon rubbed the back of his neck. "It was a timing issue." I looked at him. "Then explain the timing." He pointed at me. "Don't drag Ethan into this." The room shifted again. I kept my voice even. "I didn't. You used his name on money requests. I included the requests because they show a pattern. Ethan is not responsible for your choices, and I will not let you hide behind him." One cousin muttered, "Jesus." Brandon snapped, "You don't know what I had going on." "No," I said. "I know what you promised, what you didn't pay, and who covered it." Mom's tears came then. Not when everyone thought I was a thief. Not when I was being told I had abandoned my family. The tears came when the record started making her uncomfortable. "How could you do this to your mother?" she whispered. I felt the old guilt rise by habit. It got halfway up my throat before it met something harder. "No," I said. "You humiliated me with lies. I'm answering with records." She pressed a napkin under her eyes. "I was trying to protect this family. You were trying to protect Brandon from consequences." Brandon stood up. "I was going to fix it." Aunt Ruth looked at him over the top of the printed page. "Fix what?" He went quiet. She asked again, flat and calm. "Fix what, Brandon?" He swallowed. "The deposit." "The deposit you said you paid?" Aunt Ruth asked. "I was going to." "With what money?" He glanced at Mom. Mom stared into her coffee. Aunt Ruth turned to her. "Linda." Mom's mouth tightened. Aunt Ruth tapped the page with one finger. "Which part of this is untrue?" Mom said, "That's not the point." "It is exactly the point." Nobody spoke. Aunt Ruth was not loud. She did not need to be. She had the kind of authority people listen to because she only spent it when necessary. She looked at the folder again. Natalie paid the deposit. Natalie paid pharmacy bills. Natalie submitted the insurance form. Natalie handled the appointment changes. Brandon received the reimbursement money first. Linda knew there was a problem and asked Natalie not to mention it. Mom whispered, "I didn't want him embarrassed." There it was. Not a full confession. Not accountability. Just enough truth slipping through the crack. I said, "But you were fine with me being humiliated." She didn't answer. Brandon said, "It wasn't like that." "Then say what it was like." He opened his mouth, closed it, then said the most Brandon sentence possible. "I had a short-term mess." A cousin near the sink said, "With Aunt Ruth's care money?" Brandon's face reddened. "I was going to put it back before anyone noticed." I said, "That is not an answer." Claire set her phone down. Her eyes were wet, but she did not make a production of it. "Natalie," she said, "I owe you an apology." I looked at her. She continued, "I repeated things I didn't verify. I should have asked you before I judged you. I'm sorry." That apology did something strange to the room. It gave everyone else permission to stop pretending they were confused. Another cousin said, "Linda, why did you say Brandon should take over if this was already happening?" Mom's face hardened. "Because I thought he needed a chance." Aunt Ruth said, "He had one." Brandon looked offended. "So what, I'm just the villain now?" "No," I said. "You're the adult who has to answer direct questions now. I know that feels similar." A few people looked down. Someone almost laughed and swallowed it. Mom shot me a look. "There. That tone. This is what I mean." I leaned both hands on the back of a chair. My tone did not lose the money. Aunt Ruth closed the folder. "Here is what is going to happen," she said. "From now on, if it is not written down, it does not exist. Every bill, every reimbursement, every appointment, every ride, every promise, written down, visible to everyone involved. No more money through Brandon. No more private side arrangements through Linda. And nobody is taking over paperwork from Natalie, unless Natalie agrees and the records are current." Brandon said, "That feels a little extreme." Aunt Ruth looked at him. "So does not paying for care after saying you did." He sat down. Mom cried harder but differently now. The tears were not working and she knew it. The rest of the afternoon was ugly in the quiet way family consequences usually are. Nobody flipped a table. Nobody screamed for 10 minutes straight. Instead, people asked Brandon short questions he could not charm his way around. Where did the reimbursement money go? When were you going to replace it? Why did you let everyone think Natalie caused the problem? Why did you tell Mom one thing and the agency another? His answers were fog. I was juggling a lot. I thought it would clear faster. I didn't want anyone worried. It wasn't some evil plan. Maybe it wasn't evil. Maybe it was cowardice. Maybe entitlement. Maybe years of being rescued had taught him that consequences were always something Natalie would intercept before they reached him. That part was on me too. I had to admit that later when the anger cooled. I had helped build the bridge he kept using to escape accountability. I told myself I was protecting Aunt Ruth, Ethan, Mom, the family piece. Sometimes I was. Sometimes I was just afraid of being called selfish. That day the bridge finally closed. Aunt Ruth required Brandon to make a repayment plan in writing before he left. Claire took a photo of it and uploaded it to a new chat Aunt Ruth created right there. She named it Ruth Care Only. The first message was from Aunt Ruth. Facts only. Dates, bills, appointments. No speeches. I nearly smiled. The old family first chat did not die immediately. Chats like that never do. They rot first. Mom tried a vague post later that night. Linda. I hope someday people remember who loved them before they had documents. For the first time, nobody rushed in with hearts. Claire replied, before anyone comments, can we stick to specifics? Aunt Ruth wrote, I have read the documents. Linda and Brandon need to answer questions, not create fog. Two cousins left the chat. One muted it and told me privately she was sorry but didn't want to get involved. Which was funny because she had been plenty involved when involvement only required judging me. Brandon texted me 3 days later. You didn't have to embarrass me like that. I wrote back. You're confusing exposure with embarrassment. One is what I did. The other is what you earned. He replied. I said I was going to fix it. I didn't answer. The silence felt different when I chose it. Mom waited almost a week before calling. I knew she would. She liked people softened by time because time blurred details and Linda was strongest in blur. I answered while folding towels because I needed something ordinary in my hands. She skipped hello. You made me look like a terrible mother. No, I said. I stopped helping you make me look like a terrible daughter. She inhaled sharply. After everything I've done for you? I closed my eyes. There it was. The big family invoice. The one without dates or amounts, just guilt. I'm not arguing my childhood with you today. You humiliated me. You accused me of mishandling care money in front of relatives. You knew Brandon had the money first. You knew I paid the deposit. You left me that voicemail. I was trying to keep peace. You were trying to keep your favorite version of Brandon. She went quiet. Continued. Here are my boundaries. I will not pay another bill for you or Brandon. I will not cover late fees caused by someone else ignoring a deadline. I will not manage emergencies created by Brandon's neglect. I will help Aunt Ruth through the care-only thread when the task is written down and visible. If you use family first to imply I'm selfish, dishonest, or cruel again, I will answer in the same space with records. You sound cold. I sound finished. She cried again, softly this time. Once that would have pulled me back. I would have apologized for my tone. I would have explained for 20 minutes. I would have offered one small task to prove I was still a good daughter. Instead I said, I hope you take care of yourself, Mom. Then I hung up. The weeks after that were not magical. My family did not transform into honest, emotionally healthy people because of one folder. Brandon did not suddenly become reliable. Mom did not send a sincere apology with a list of what she had done wrong. Some relatives acted awkward around me because it was easier than admitting they had enjoyed the first version of the story. But things changed where it mattered. Aunt Ruth's care stayed in the new thread. Every bill had a photo. Every appointment had a name next to it. Every reimbursement had a screenshot. Brandon was not allowed to touch money directly. When he volunteered for a ride, Aunt Ruth wrote, confirm by 8 a.m. or Natalie will not be expected to rescue it. The first time he failed to confirm, nobody called me behind the scenes. Claire took the ride. Brandon got tagged in the thread with missed confirmation. 2 words. No emotion. Beautiful. Mom still posted vague little lines sometimes. Some people forget family is more than paperwork. Kindness matters more than being right. God sees the whole story. And for the first time, the group did not pile on me. A couple people ignored it. Claire once replied, "Then the whole story should not be a problem." I bought her coffee after that. She apologized again in person, not in a dramatic way. She just said, "I was lazy with the truth because your mom sounded hurt. That wasn't fair." I appreciated that more than a long speech. As for Brandon, he avoided me at first. Then he tried casual friendliness, like maybe enough time had passed for the folder to become rude instead of true. At Ethan's school event a month later, he stood beside me near the back wall and said, "So are we just never going to be normal again?" I watched Ethan laughing with a friend across the room. I said, "Normal was me cleaning up your mess while you let people think I caused it." He stared ahead. "I didn't mean for it to get that bad." "I believe you." He looked relieved too soon. I added, "That doesn't make it smaller." He didn't have an answer. I did not punish Ethan for any of it. I still showed up for him when I chose to, not when Brandon tried to corner me. I took Ethan out for burgers after his school event because he asked if we could go, not because Brandon needed free childcare. When Brandon texted, "Can you keep him overnight? I'm in a bind," I wrote, "Ask in the care or family schedule with the actual times. I don't do vague binds anymore." He didn't respond for 6 hours. Then he figured something else out. Good. That was the part nobody tells you about boundaries. People say they don't work because the other person keeps acting the same. But boundaries are not spells you cast on other people. They are doors you stop leaving unlocked. I still love my family. That did not disappear just because I stopped volunteering to be their scapegoat. I still worry about Mom when she sounds tired. I still hope Brandon becomes the father Ethan deserves. I still want Aunt Ruth safe, comfortable, and surrounded by people who show up. But I no longer confuse being useful with being loved. I no longer let family first turn into a courtroom where everyone else gets to testify, and I am expected to sit quietly as evidence against myself. I muted the old chat. I stayed in Ruth care only. I kept the receipts not because I wanted to keep fighting, but because I had finally learned that people who benefit from your silence will call your memory an attack. Mom once told me I had a sharp tongue. Maybe she was right. But dates are sharper. I didn't stop loving my family. I stopped letting them use love as a leash. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.